the moon since 1962. The NASA programs of Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, the Space Shuttle, Space Lab, all that was just a cover. It was a cover for what's really going on. We've been going back and forth to the moon since 1962. We've been had a base established on Mars since 1966. The population of Mars is about 600 million. The people look almost identical to us, but far more advanced. Most of them live underground because of some climatic disaster that happened there that took away most of the Mars atmosphere. There still is a thin atmosphere there, and you can still breathe on Mars, but it's not as thick as that we have here. Same thing goes for the moon. There is an atmosphere on the moon. It is breathable. It does hold, the sky is not black as NASA would have you believe. It's probably blue. It could be yellow. I'm not sure exactly what the color is, but there's atmosphere up there, and you can breathe for a short time without supplemental oxygen.
Now, that's interesting. There was a movie that came out not long ago called Total Recall that had that premise, that Mars had a blue sky and a breathable atmosphere.
Yeah, well, Mars definitely has a blue sky. I've seen the original or actual photos of the video imaging that came into JPL, and what they do is they change that to red so that everybody thinks it's the sky is red or pink on Mars, but the daytime sky is definitely blue, very similar, almost identical blue to here on Earth.
Just so our listening audience understands how you would have this information, John Lear is the son of the man who developed the Learjet, and he was a pilot in the Air Force?
No, I was a commercial pilot. I flew for about 40 years. I retired in 1999. The last job I had was flying a Lockheed L-1011 for Kitty Hawk International, and they went bankrupt, and I retired then. I was 3 years short of being 60, which is mandatory retirement anyway, but all throughout my career I had a chance to fly some very interesting airplanes, and I flew all over the world, and it was just an interesting time. I didn't learn anything during my flying career about any of the stuff we're talking about now, UFOs, the moon, nothing. It was a straight pilot's career. Only towards the end of my career did I start to get interested in this, and it was by picking up a book written by Bud Hopkins, and the book was called Missing Time. And I remember reading that. I think I picked it up at a friend's house here in Las Vegas, and I looked at this thing. I looked at the title, and I thumbed through it, and I said, "Can I borrow this?" And he said, "Yeah." And I read that, and when I read it, I felt, this is real. This is really going on. It was about abductions. And so I started looking into this stuff, and at that time, I thought, because of the stuff that the government and the military puts out about UFOs are not real, I thought I'd tell them, hey, you guys, it's real. It's really going on. It turns out they knew it all the time, but that's not what they tell the public. I got really interested, met a lot of different people, went on a lot of different trips to get this information, and that's how it all started.
One of the things I've noticed that is that a lot of people say that what was that program that came out that did the research on whether or not it would be a good idea to release this information to the public concerning extraterrestrial visitation and abductions, the reality and the UFO question, where they made the decision not to release it because they said there would be mass panic?
Yeah.
The Brookings report, was it?
That was a study done in 1962, I believe it was, and I'm trying to remember the name of the study. But they did decide that it would be best not to release that information because there was essentially no point. What they did figure out, though, was our society and our economy, in order to operate, has to be based on a wartime economy. In other words, we could not function, our economy could not grow if we were just had peace all the time and there was nothing to stimulate the economy. So that's why we have war all the time. That was what was behind the Vietnam War. That was what was behind Grenada. All the little wars, Kosovo, all that up into including Afghanistan and Iraq. It's all about the economy. It's nothing about the reasons that they give you.
So the report basically said that we couldn't handle it as a nation. This
yes,
information.
that it would probably disrupt the economy and probably disrupt life in general. And I'll go along with that. There's a few people, as a matter of fact, a lot of people that would think it's really cool that aliens are here, that we're on the moon, we're on Mars and everything. But generally, for the other 6 billion people on this planet, they really don't need to know this. There are other, problems to deal with, and so that's why they elected to keep it secret.
Okay, I was under the impression that a lot of the UFO community had been led to believe themselves that the problem was that the religious communities would be the first to panic and that they were the most likely to have an impact on this decision. I find that very odd. Almost every person I've spoken to, whether religious or otherwise, has never shown a tendency based on religious belief to agree or disagree or show that they would be panicked somehow. So I thought that was interesting that that particular rumor, if that's what it was, got started, that the Brookings report was basically outlining that religious people would have a problem with it.
Yeah, that was one of the big problems.
Now, see, to me, that doesn't make sense. I know so many people of faith that don't have a problem with the idea that God made other life forms besides humans. So, I mean, in some cases, it's actually very, very biblical. I mean, he created the angels before he created us, so there you go. Yeah. Maybe the angels are extraterrestrials.
Right, and you and I can understand, and the people that we, talk to and converse with and associate with, but we're not talking about the other 6 billion. The other 6 billion that, live day to day, hand them out, they have big problems, and they don't need to know about all of this stuff that's going
on. But then, why would the UFO movie industry be so popular if that weren't something that people actually enjoyed listening to, learning about, and speculating on?
Oh yeah, we all get a kick out of it, and it's all presented, as possibility, and that's part of the program. They're not suppressing it entirely, but Steven Spielberg came out with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and we were all, happy to learn about these, these little people that all they wanted to do was phone home, and that's all to keep us occupied.
That's cute. Phone home. E.T. phone home. So when you were, when you received the photographs that you shared with Above Top Secret, did you have the original impression that what you were looking at had something to do with mining, or did that not actually come up until Zorgon found the equipment?
It didn't come up until Zorgon started finding the equipment, and at AboveTopSecret.com, one of the owners there, Skeptic Overlord, posted one of the photos, and he said, "Hey, wait a minute, this looks like a mining operation. This looks like a strip mine operation." And it really did, because there's all kinds of levels. It's obviously been mined. I mean, this is nothing that could happen naturally on a crater wall. Somebody dug this out. There's
Right, because there's a difference I noticed in the photographs of color. The area that has been mined is a different color than the on the same crater wall.
Yeah.
And you can't really attribute that to the light. The light is evenly spread across the whole area.
Yeah.
So another thing I noticed while I was looking at the photographs, that there appeared to be a lot of cloudy, like cloud-type cover over many of the things. And I was trying to determine if that was what they referred to as lunar regolith, or if it was some form of, like you were saying, around the craters where they'll have something they call ejecta that really isn't ejecta. It's
now, which photo are you talking about?
Oh, almost all of them.
Oh, all
but
of them.
especially
Okay.
the 4 or 5 Copernicus photographs. I noticed there was a lot of cloud cover. That's what I called it, because if you look at the photograph and some of the areas close up, you can see what look like buildings peeking out from between this white misty stuff that in some cases it actually looks like a layer of bumpy white material that's been painted over top. And in other cases it actually looks like clouds.
Okay, now it could be either. There are definitely clouds on the moon. There's no doubt about it. There's both clouds and fog. But the specific white stuff that covers some of these buildings and stuff, that was put in by NASA. And when you say regolith, that's just a fancy name for moon soil.
Right, the moon soil, which I did a little study on this myself along with Zorgon when we were researching for the Living Moon book, which is a book that yourself and the Pegasus Research Consortium are putting together on this very topic. It'll be coming out soon. And one of the things we were looking into was why it seemed that there were so many grid patterns on the surface of the moon that looked artificial, but you couldn't actually see details on any buildings. And we were trying to determine, is this because we're at such a great distance in the photograph from the actual surface, or is it that there's painting on the negative that's hiding it, or are they actually burying these things in lunar regolith to protect it from electromagnetic radiation and neutrino bombardment?
No, I don't think there's any radiation. The lines that you see in some cases, they were where cities are or used to be. For instance, in the area north of Ukirt that they call the area of Los Angeles, that's an area with rows and rows and rows of what are apparently streets. Now we can't get a photograph that you can see this stuff because NASA's taken very good care to be sure that we don't. But there are all kinds of places around the moon that do have these regular patterns. I don't think they're covering up anything. It's just where they mined or dug those trenches for some particular reason.
Okay, so now the Ukirt is a crater.
Right.
Right, a crater on the moon.
Ukirt is the crater. If you look dead center of the moon, just a little bit north, sometimes it appears as a equilateral triangle. We've looked very closely, and it could appear that, but it's generally just a regular crater.
So are you under the impression that the majority of what we're seeing up there now is new, or do you believe we have a mixture of old and new up there?
Old and new what?
Old and new anomaly, old and new buildings, old and new constructs.
Yeah, it's. I think it's all the stuff we've seen is relatively new. I would say, in the past couple of 100 years, there's an attempt by NASA to say that there could be an ancient civilization because they don't want anybody to think there's anybody up there now. They don't want anybody to think there's people mining there now, and so they refer to ancient civilizations. But there's people up there right now. You can look at that Copernicus photograph that's on AboveTopSecret.com. It's in the thread called John Lear's Moon Photos. Take a look at it yourself. I mean, there's machines that are raising dust. There's vapor rising from